Welcome to the reading of Secondhand Summer, Chapter 10. The story was in the paper the next morning, but the cops never came to my door. A photo of the angry driver standing next to his car parked on the sidewalk half in the weeds. The article made it sound like the water balloon was a bazooka shell. I was relieved to read that the car hadn't actually crashed, but only swerved up on the sidewalk and bounced into the weeds without hurting anybody. Taylor cut the article out and put it on the wall above his bed, and would have kept talking about it for a month if it hadn't been for the Caribou Club and a burgundy Corvette. Once I realized that the police would not track me down and arrest me for throwing a water balloon, I rekindled my resolve to take the Caribou Club in hand. We were finishing a yard job for Billy's next-door neighbor when Masick and Taylor came by and wanted to go back to the gully. "Forget the gully," I said. "Forget we ever saw it. We have a hangout to beat all hangouts." Billy gave me a glance, as if to say, "Are you sure about this?" But I was sure, and I continued. "This is the Corvette Stingray of all hangouts, and it's right here in your own neighborhood." I started laughing at myself for sounding like a used car salesman on TV. "Are you wacko?" asked Masick. "There ain't no such thing around here unless you're talking about that Quonset hut." Taylor jumped in. "No, not that stupid Quonset hut. I hate it. Too many older guys use it at night and everybody knows about it. Let's go to the gully. It's not raining today, so it'll be great." "It's great if you like mosquitoes biting your butt. Great if dark and wet is your idea of comfortable. Tell 'em, Billy. Tell 'em how great our spot is." Billy laughed and jumped over the fence to join us in the alley behind his house. "It's pretty far out, guys. Far out." "The gully's just some stupid old boards and a bunch of plastic," I insisted. "Stupid, but we worked a whole day on that gully," said Masick. "Yeah, but so your dump spot is better?" Taylor asked. "Yep," added Billy. "Couldn't even compare," I said with a grin. It was a relief to finally tell them about it, now that we just had to convince them to check it out. "Really? Come on, we'll show you. What could be cooler than having a hangout right in plain sight?" Taylor stared at the ground. "I can't go right now. I got stuff to do." "Since when?" said Billy. "Come on, Taylor, let's go." He shook his head. Suddenly I understood. Taylor always got to pick the games and the pranks we went on. The Caribou Club was new and big, and he wanted it to be his idea. "We need you guys," I offered. "You're good at figuring things out and making stuff better." The plan unfolded for me as I continued to talk. "With the four of us, we can clean up the club and make it really cool. You'll see, it's something special." Finally, Taylor gave in, but as we walked to the Caribou Club, he remained unconvinced that Billy and I could find a place, a wonderful place, right there in his own neighborhood. A neighborhood where he had roamed free, stealing comic books with impunity. When we finally escorted him back into the Caribou Club and he saw the main room bathed in the glow of our flashlights, when we marched through the rattle of paper in the main hall, his total silence showed me that he approved. Billy, who had been quiet during the walkover, rushed to the bandstand, and there he danced in a tiny spotlight and sang the latest Beatles song. He strummed a ghost guitar and made us laugh. The laughter echoed in the hall. "You want to hold my hand?" giggled Masick. "What a queer." "You ought to know," I answered. "Huh?" Billy and I rushed him together and pitched him to the floor. "Taylor!" he yelped, but Taylor was off exploring. I snatched Masick's light, and we left him in the middle of the floor, switching our lights off and on as we dove behind the curtain and waited in stillness. Real funny, guys." Silence and darkness. "Billy, Sam, Taylor, where are you guys? Knock it off. Billy!" The darkness in the hall was complete, and Masick was alone in it. We pinched our noses and waited in silence. Then we rushed the heavy curtains and moaned deep and sinister. We could hear Masick's breathing becoming hard and tight. "Taylor, you better get out here right goddamn now," he said. Then the curtains moved, First furtively, and then without a sound, we were sprayed with a barrage of light. Red, green, yellow, and white spotlights scorched our dilated pupils and froze us mid-step. Momentarily, our hearts and minds rushed away from us, out the back door, across the parking lot, and into the arms of our parents. "Shit!" yelled Billy. "Ah!" I screamed. And from the hall before us, Mason yelled, "Oh, God!" "Ta-da!" cheered Taylor, and he leaped from behind the curtain and into the glare of the lights. "Where'd the lights come from?" I asked. "There's a switch, stupid." He held a broom handle like a microphone and tried to talk, but laughter and total self-satisfaction had overtaken him, and he writhed hysterically. You guys were so damn funny." "Taylor, you jerk," I laughed. Then he found a modicum of control. "Yes, folks, we have a really big show tonight." Billy was calm. "Is that your best Ed Sullivan impression?" "Not bad, huh?" Taylor said, struggling with fits of laughter. "Oh, I loved it. You twerps thought it was all over, didn't you?" "No, we didn't," I lied for the three of us. In the center of the dance hall, Masick hunkered as if he had been melted into a pile of bird poop. He didn't look at any of us or anything. He was just heaped there amid the paper, and he shuddered a little. "Masick, Masick," I called. "Are you okay?" He leaped suddenly to his feet. "No, I'm not. Taylor, all you guys, if you ever do anything like that again, I'll kick your ass, you stupid moron jerks." Taylor laughed. "Are you mad, Masick?" he asked, leaning over with his hands on his knees. "Up your nose, Andrew Taylor, you son of a bitch. My mom wasn't a dog. You've met her." We laughed, and Masick almost did. He crept to the elevated bandstand and joined us in the footlights. "Bet she spits rice when you kiss her," he said, softly, finally scoring. This time Taylor didn't laugh, but it didn't stop the rest of us. And it didn't stop the moron jokes that followed there in the lights of the stage, where we were the stars and the audience at the same time, for the only people that really mattered. Taylor finally got to play Ed Sullivan, and then we were all the Beatles and stand-up comics. I used my fingers to mash my face around. "Watch this, guys," I said, and I turned my eyelids inside out. Sick. First time I saw that, I was too small to laugh, so I just rolled over and shit. "Yeah, then your mom threw away the wrong pile." We joked and played and explored the place throughout the afternoon, taking possession of it just by being there. It was a stolen time in off-limits place. We could have been on the moon. We were so separated from the rest of the world. Dancing, cursing, singing, forgetting all the rules that our parents taught us. It was like we found a place behind the sign that said, "No trespassing, adults only." I left the dirty old building feeling pretty tired but thirsty. The afternoon in the Caribou Club had been a parching experience. With a quarter in my pocket and the Big G drive-in on the way home, not to mention the chance of seeing Shirley the waitress, my mouth was dry as the desert in a Borax soap cap commercial. "Hi," I called when I saw her. "Hello, stranger." "The usual," she answered with a smile. Stranger. It sounded so familiar. How much more familiar could she get? She would have to jump across the counter and kiss me, I guess. Was this more wonderful than before? Could I even speak? She left a fellow she was talking to at one of the booths and came around the corner to face me. "I'll have a root beer, please," I managed. "Drinking it straight today, huh?" "Yeah, well, ice would be nice." She laughed. Her voice was like a tinkling tiny bells, like that jingling that Tinkerbell makes with her wand at the beginning of a Disney movie. I reached for the glass of water and stared in horror. My hands. I drew them back and tried to look nonchalant as I strolled to the restroom. My hands had collected the dust and grime from everything I touched that day. I scrubbed them vigorously. Then, seeing my face in the mirror, I scrubbed it too. Even my arms took a lather and showed lighter skin beneath. When I returned to my stool, my root beer was waiting, and Shirley was giggling with the guy in the booth again. I felt small and jealous. She didn't circle back to the counter until he left, but when she did, she saw my wounded arm, now bearing a massive scab from my bicycle crash. "What happened?" she asked, touching the egg-shaped scab just below my elbow and crinkling her perfect eyebrows in sympathy. "That must hurt." "Nah, it's just a little scrape from a bike wreck." "Ouch," she cared. She touched me. She cared. I wanted to run out and get a truck run over me so that she would spend forever tending my wounds. I watched for half an hour while she floated around the diner, feeding the hungry, and I fed on her motion. I was sucking the last drops of root beer from the ice cubes in my glass when the door swung almost voluntarily. A tall teenager in a leather jacket sauntered through. He was lean and athletic, with a clean white t-shirt and creased blue jeans. He had a jaw like a cowboy hero, and the rest was all shoulders and teeth. Mr. Perfect leaned on the counter and said to Shirley, "Hey, how's my girl today?" She lit up like a kitchen match. With the turn of her head toward him, she slit my throat, and I bled slowly into the straw that hung stupidly out of my mouth. I saw then for the first time the smitten starburst of love like in the movies, and I knew more than I wanted to know. "Hi, Alan," she chirped. Like the pineapple topping on a sundae, the words were clumpy and sweet and made my stomach hurt. I finished my root beer and slid invisibly off my stool and across a pool of my pain to the door. It squealed when I opened it, and it felt so heavy. Mr. Perfect looked up. "So long, come back again." Outside, the sky had opened, and a heavy shower poured rain in my eyes. But I couldn't leave just yet. I had to watch her and wish myself in that place. I half-heartedly admired a bright green '56 Chevy sitting alone in the lot. Small fins lifted off the rear fender, and chrome accented the windows and the headlights. The seats were shiny red and white, all of it spotless. Clouds moved lower and darkened the sky, and the rain rattled on the hood of the car. I peeked back through the shadowed windows one last time and saw Shirley lean over the counter and touch her puckered lips to Mr. Perfect's cheek. I turned away ashamed and slunk down the sidewalk toward home, picking at the scab on my arm. When I'd covered only half a block and was pretty well soaked, a car pulled up at the curb and a window rolled down. "How about a lift?" The '56 Chevy idled at the curb with Mr. Perfect behind the wheel. I stood there looking at the face that was talking to me, the face that Shirley had kissed, and I wanted to smash it for being so cocky, so handsome, and so all together, and I'm wearing my leather jacket perfect. I had worked hard on this dream, and he didn't fit in. I wasn't prepared to justify him to the illogical optimism of my fantasies. "Hop in, you're getting soaked." Okay, I thought, but I won't be nice. Okay, but don't think this makes it better. Okay, but drop dead. I got in. "Nice car." "Thanks. I just got it running. My dad and I have been working on it." He smiled, that "I'm a nice guy, big brother kind of guy" smile, and I felt better even though I didn't want to. Maybe he wasn't bragging about having a dad, or maybe it just came out that way. "Where are you headed?" "My dad's dead." Once again, I blurted it out before I could even think it was a bad idea. I hastily added, "I mean the Hollywood Arms. I'm headed up there." "Alan Hansen," he said, and he extended his hand. Sam Barger." I shook his hand. "That's tough. About your dad, I mean." And he was embarrassed, but so was I, so I tried to change the subject. "My brother has a Mustang." "Really? Those are so bad. Is it a fastback?" "Yeah, red and fast." "I bet." Silence. I looked out the window and into the vision of the three girls in cutoffs, pausing in the rain to wave and smile. I waved back, a short, loose-wristed high schooler kind of wave. I wanted the long drive to last forever, to cruise all around Anchorage in that '56 Chevy with Mr. Perfect. But in what felt like seconds, he stopped the car and I was home. I hopped out and reached through the window to shake his hands. "Thanks for the ride," I said. "You've got a real nice girlfriend." He smiled and drove away. On the steps of our apartment building, I met the girl with the belly button forehead, and I asked her name. "Melissa," she answered, and I gave her a piece of gum. I wondered if she was always there, sitting on the cold, indifferent concrete of the front steps, and I imagined her riding in a nice car with a boy who wanted to kiss her, but that fantasy wouldn't hold. Chapter 11. For more than a week, the Caribou Club was the center of our waking energy and the setting for the most magnificent of dreams. If we weren't mowing lawns to make money or riding bikes, we were hanging out at the club. I had no other distraction than my fantasies about Shirley, and those had been crushed by the high school letterman. Last year, Alan would have been my idol, a guy you wanted to see standing at the basketball game or sit next to on the bus. But now he was just an impossible model of reality in a times when dreams were all you could depend on. In the Caribou Club, none of that mattered. When Taylor discovered the spotlights, we knew he had not only space, but power, real power, electricity. Buildings needed power all year to prevent their pipes from freezing, but we figured it was justified good fortune just for us. The fuses were gone from all but a couple of the spaces in the big electrical box, but we found that the ones from my apartment building fit just fine. And we soon had lights in the dance hall, but mostly we used the stage lights, leaving the rest of the building dark and mysterious. Even in the daylight, we couldn't give anyone a clue about us being inside. This was a big secret to keep. We brought in a radio for music and crackers and peanut butter for snacks. We had a stash of comics and Mad magazines in a cardboard box. So we spent some of our time just lounging around in the semi-darkness, reading our favorites and telling jokes. But it wasn't all play. I was bent on cleaning the place up and even found a broom. I had just started sweeping up when I heard a pop, pop, pop exploding from the kitchen. Macy came running out with Taylor and Chase. He had discovered a batch of light bulbs and was using them like grenades to torture Masick. Pop! He threw another one right at Masick's feet and made him jump as he sprinted through the room. "Knock it off," I yelled. "Why should I?" Taylor yelled back, still throwing bulbs. "It's fun." "Stop breaking stuff," hollered Billy. "You're making a huge mess, man. You gonna clean it up?" Taylor stopped with the light bulb grenades, but things were dark and quiet for a while he pouted. Billy and I swept up all the glass scattered around the floor. We worked as we never would have at home, sweeping up garbage, bringing out some stray furniture and putting some away, generally setting things up. We found a closet by the back door where we heaped all the paper trash and filled the room waist high with litter. "What is all this paper?" Masick asked. He picked up some of the white sheets we'd been scooping. Billy grabbed one. "Blank restaurant receipts. Must be millions of them." "Wonder who threw them all over," Masick asked. "Don't look at me," growled Taylor. "The ghost of the Caribou Club," I announced. "Place like this must have a ghost." Billy grinned wickedly. "Now that would be so, boss." We filled the closet with receipts, closed the door, and forgot about them. But we didn't forget about the ghost idea, hoping to find one, but praying we didn't. Food and drinks we kept stashed behind the counter of the restaurant, where we took turns serving with a flamboyant style and inflated prices that we didn't have to pay. We were in the midst of one banquet of Kool-Aid and Oreos when Billy, waiter for the day, froze, and his eyes grew wide. "Shh, a car," he whispered calmly. Then we all heard it, the crunch of tires on gravel. The engine sound was muffled, but the tires crumbled across the gravel with such clarity that one could imagine every stone grinding against its neighbor to send us a warning. Oh, no, whispered Masick, his face suddenly pale in the dim light. Cops. Hush, I heard myself saying, as if the sound of rolling tires would tell me all I needed to know. Kill the lights, ordered Billy, thinking while the rest of us did nothing. Taylor rushed to the switch. We huddled together behind the counter like a litter of deserted puppies. When the tire sound stopped, we heard only the faint hum of a car's engine through the wall. We breathed only because we couldn't not breathe. And Billy munched the last Oreo and grinned bravely. He made me want to laugh, or pee. I looked away and grabbed my nose. Taylor caught the fever and started making faces. Trapped between them, I buried my face in my hand, imagining the wall suddenly dissolving and leaving us huddled, giggling, and naked in the spotlight of a squad car. When the rubber crushing gravel again, we could hear it moving away from our hiding place. Taylor rushed to a window that had a peephole through the boards. Yep, it's a cop, he announced. Probably smelled your farts, Barker. Either that or one of your tampons, I answered. We eased out the fear and dirty jokes that we threw like stones at each other. We could really be in for it, guys. What if he went for backup, asked Masick, still worried and pale. He could come back, you know. Remember the night with the comic books? Cops don't go for help. They use their radios, you weenie. I'm getting out of here. Masick headed for the back door, and I grabbed him at the hallway. Easy, buddy. We got to check it out first. Then I'll slide out, fast and quiet. Okay. But he wasn't okay. Neither was I. That big knot was back in my stomach, and I wanted to run. But I laughed. Let's let the superhero lead us. And I gestured toward the swaggering Taylor. And so we crept out to face the sun and the unknown. Taylor leading, followed by Billy, then Masick and me. The lot behind the building was empty, and we crossed quickly to the brush and dropped down the low hill to Bluff Road. We walked the sidewalk back up the hill and through the neighborhood to our homes. We wore out the topic of the noisy police car without finding a good reason for him to be there. We finally agreed that it was just coincidence, and in 2 days we were back on the bandstand where we staged performances to our own friendly crowd. We were in the midst of a butchered Gettysburg Address by Billy Abe Lincoln when Taylor got restless. I saw him drift into the shadows again and then circle back with his hands in his pockets. We got to go do something. Like what, Taylor? Said Billy. I don't know. We were going to get some other guys with us and have some parties and such. Who you got in mind? I don't know. Anybody you know. Anybody really cool. What about Masick's sister? Billy snickered. I wouldn't mind getting her in the dark. My sister? That's sick. He flipped the universal bird in Billy's direction. Speaking of sister, Masick, is she the one who taught you to flip the bird? What? Masick asked, his face confused. He flipped a lame bird at us, his hand wadded into a tight little white-knuckle fist with the thumb folded across it, as if holding it together. Protruding from the fist at 90 degrees was a pudgy middle finger. You call that a bird? Taylor said with a laugh. This is the bird, Billy said, and he stood holding his middle finger straight up with the other fingers bent at the second joint. The palm of his hand faced him and was flat, the thumb out to the side. It was an icon for all the birds I'd seen flipped, a model of perfection. Masick was unimpressed. Yeah, so show me yours again. Self-consciously, Masick flipped his lame bird in our corrective faces, and again we laughed shamelessly. See what I mean? Compare. Billy flew his magnificent bird once more. It was an eagle soaring over a plucked chicken. We laughed and laughed, and then I heard it again. Rubber crushing rocks. Cops, I hissed. This time, Billy wasn't cool. It was as if he'd used up all his bluster and confidence the first time. He rushed for the door. I ran to the peephole and saw the blue and white fender pass the side of the building. The cop was driving around back. I ran, hitting the lights as I passed. I got to the door at the same time the others did and landed against it with my shoulder. He's driving around back. The tires stopped. The engine stopped. A door opened. I yanked open the closet door to my left, the closet we had used for all our trash. It was about the size of our apartment bathroom, piled deep with cardboard and the discarded paper. I pushed the others in, closed the door, and swam for the bottom. The floor was damp, and someone else put his foot in my face, but I burrowed deeper and pulled musty paper over me. This cop was thorough. He tested the knob and found the door unlocked. We could hear the shuffle of his shoes as he walked in. He clip-clopped down the hall, his coat brushing the closet door. I mentally counted his footsteps through the whole building. I began composing my excuse. If caught, like I did in the railroad yard, I was going to be prepared. He didn't know anything about us or what we were doing here. The first option, of course, was to tell the truth and bleed all over the floor with explanations of the cleanup work we did and how we didn't break anything and that we were just having fun. I could only imagine my experience with grown-ups, however, told me that playing stupid had only worked in the railroad yard once and not apt to work again. Then I remembered reading a book about a boy who had chased a lost cat into an abandoned house and discovered a gang of thieves. It had been a silly kid detective story, but the idea was sound. We were just chasing Masic's cat, I decided, and it had run into the building. The door was left open, of course. Why were we hiding? We knew this place was off limits and we didn't know if it was a policeman, and we were scared. Sometimes it doesn't pay to act grown up. The heavy clip-clop of shoes on the tile floor walked back to the closet and paused. An eternity passed. The doorknob rattled and suddenly the door opened. The light of truth and justice seemed to burn away the layers of cardboard and paper that was covering us. I could feel the cop's stare against my back, and I wondered if the others felt as trapped and naked as I did. We lay waiting, fighting the urge to scream. How were the others so brave, so cool? I couldn't stand it. Miraculously, the closet door closed. The cop was walking away, and then I heard the door to the outside open and close, and then the car door closed, and gravel met rubber. Freedom, escape. My body had been arched in a crescent of fear the whole time, and when I relaxed, I found the floor cool and comforting on my cheek. I shivered and trembled like a bird that smacked into a window. I couldn't breathe. There wasn't enough air in that place. Perhaps in the whole world there wasn't enough air. Let's get the hell out of here. Masick was on his feet in a cloud of paper and panic. Faint light tumbled into the room so it looked like a gerbil cage. Taylor stood up and laughed. Scared you, huh, Masick? Behind Masick, the papers rustled and then erupted. Yah! Yelled Billy. Masick dashed into the hall and hit the outside door with both hands. It didn't budge, even when he turned the knob. The door's stuck, he cried. Relax, man. The cop is gone. Quit being a weenie. I told you, the door is stuck. For emphasis, Masick put his shoulder against it and bumped it 3 times. Billy spilled out into the hall, all excitement and life. Shit, that was scary, but kind of cool, huh? That cop was right there, 2 feet from us, and he couldn't see us. He nearly danced. Billy, the door's stuck, you moron. Masick was still slamming his shoulder against the metal door. I thought he was going to cry. Taylor pushed him away and tried a few times. The talking stopped, and even Billy grew still. Staring like our eyes were magic, we wished silently for the door to swing open to the bright sun and clean air. The padlock, I said flatly. What? The padlock. He padlocked the door. No, said Masick. I could hear the panic in one word. He sank to the floor with his back against the sealed gate to freedom. Billy flicked his light off and on. Might as well have got caught, I guess. We're in jail anyway. The front door, Billy yelled. It was a race down the hall with slapping sneaker and bobbing lights. We pushed and rattled the double doors, each taking a turn, also padlocked. My Gram's going to wring my neck, Billy said. My name is Mud. Oh, my dad'll use his belt, said Masick. I could only imagine my mom's anger and then terror when I didn't come home on time. She would search alone and then call my brother. After that, she'd call the police and we'd hear the sirens as the manhunt began. All because I had to have this stupid hangout. I was just a dumb kid and I should have left it alone. The fort in the gully would have been fine. Safe and second rate, but fine. Guess we'll have to break a window, offered Taylor. 3 long faces looked at Taylor and then followed the beam of his light to a single painted window beside the front door. What if somebody hears? Asked Masick. What if we never get out of here? Billy seconded. You're a bunch of wimps, Taylor scoffed, and then he smashed his foot through the glass and punched out the jagged shards around the edges. He climbed up on the sill and kicked again and again at the plywood cover. It bent and cracked, and then the nails gave way. We were in the bushes behind the club before I breathed again. Taylor had a cut on his ankle, and all of us had scrapes from nails and the ragged plywood. But no one complained. We just lay in the weeds and stared at the club, almost turned prison. I wanted to read their thoughts so I could measure my own. I wanted to say how scary it had been, and that I hated the club. I wanted to hear them admit that they too wanted to wet their pants, or nearly had. I wanted to be home in bed reading comics. Suddenly I hated these 3 friends who were there silent and acting grown up. How are we going to get in again? It was Billy, and I suddenly admired and loathed his confidence. Are you kidding? It's over, I said. We can't go back in there. Are you crazy? Oh, come on, Sam, Billy begged. You wanted this. You started this whole thing, and it's great. Tell him, Taylor. We can't let a little thing like a lock stop us. 1 crowbar, and pop, it's gone. No sweat. I didn't want this positive, let's go for it attitude. It was over, and I wanted out. I wanted to quit. Why were they trying to force me into the hole I had dug? What about cops, I asked. We'll wait a few days, then we'll come back, I heard Billy say, with our own padlock. Just to be safe, we had to avoid the club for a while. For a week, it sat dark and abandoned as we ducked every patrol car or passing MP on his way to the base. We were convinced by the panicky logic of the guilt in our faces that they could recognize us, and a trap had surely been set for us back at the club. It would have been easy and safe to move on and forget about the Caribou Club. But this summer wasn't about safe and easy for me. This was a summer of change and new and different. Mixed up with that was a little bit of danger and trespass. The Caribou Club wouldn't let go of me, and as time wore down my fear faster than I would have imagined. Just as I never would have imagined that by the end of the summer, the raid on the railroad yard and the stolen comic books would seem like small potatoes. Sounds like there's more adventure in store when we go on to chapter 12.